The grand hall of the Zarkar Dominion's flagship shimmered with opulence, its towering walls lined with crystalline projections of their conquests. Alien officers clad in polished exosuits stood in rows, their expressions smug, their confidence absolute. At the center of the room, a young soldier with iridescent scales and a cocky grin addressed the gathered assembly. His voice was sharp, laced with derision. "Humans," he sneered. "Tiny, fragile creatures. A backwater species on a barely habitable rock. How they've even survived this long is beyond comprehension." The hall erupted in jeers, the sound reverberating against the walls. One officer, older and more composed, tapped his clawed fingers on the armrest of his chair, but said nothing. His silence carried the weight of unease, though it went unnoticed amid the bravado of the younger soldiers. The Zarkar Dominion had crushed hundreds of worlds, each more formidable than the last. Earth, to them, was an afterthought, a soft target to secure resources and assert dominance. Above the noise, a holographic projection materialized in the air, displaying Earth's surface. Its blue oceans and sprawling green continents appeared tranquil, almost vulnerable. The younger soldiers scoffed at the image, making bets on how long it would take to subjugate the humans. Minutes? Hours? None thought it could stretch beyond a day. Unbeknownst to them, thousands of miles below, General Paul Rutherford sat in a dimly lit war room on Earth. The room was stark, its only decoration a tattered flag of the United Nations pinned to the wall. Rutherford's weathered face was illuminated by the glow of the holographic table before him. His piercing blue eyes scanned the incoming data feeds with the precision of a predator tracking its prey. Around him, a team of officers monitored various screens, their movements brisk, their expressions grim. "They've breached the outer atmosphere," Lieutenant Alex Garfield announced, his voice steady despite the tension that hung in the air. He stood beside Rutherford, his youthful face hardened by the trials of war. "Scouts report at least 3 motherships, each carrying thousands of troops." Rutherford nodded but said nothing. His silence was unnerving, a sharp contrast to the frantic energy in the room. Garfield glanced at him, searching for some sign of reassurance. Instead, he found only a cold, calculating focus. "We're outnumbered," Garfield continued, almost as if he were trying to elicit a reaction. "Their technology—" "Superior," Rutherford interrupted, his voice low but firm. "Their soldiers? Arrogant. That's their weakness." The room fell silent, the hum of the machinery the only sound. Rutherford leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of the table. His gaze shifted to Garfield. "They think Earth is just another conquest," he said, his tone measured but laced with steel. "But they don't understand this planet. They don't understand us." Garfield swallowed hard, the weight of Rutherford's words sinking in. He had served under the general long enough to know that when Rutherford spoke like this, it was both a warning and a promise. The man was a master tactician, known for turning hopeless situations into victories. But this time, the odds seemed insurmountable. A sharp beat broke the silence. One of the officers turned to the room, her voice urgent. "Incoming transmission from the Zarkar fleet. They're broadcasting globally." Rutherford straightened, his expression unreadable. "Put it through." The room darkened as the holographic table projected the image of an alien commander, his golden armor gleaming under artificial light. His elongated face twisted into a grin that could only be described as condescending. "People of Earth," the alien began, his voice resonant and dripping with superiority. "I am Commander Jarzon of the Zarkar Dominion. Your time has come. Surrender your planet, and you may yet live as subservient beings in our glorious empire. Resist, and you will face annihilation." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room in silence. Rutherford let out a slow breath, his jaw tightening. He turned to Garfield. "Send a response." Garfield hesitated. "What should I say, sir?" Rutherford's lips curled into a faint, humorless smile. "Tell them Earth doesn't surrender." As Garfield relayed the message, The tension in the room shifted. Fear was still present, but it was tempered by a spark of defiance. Rutherford's confidence was infectious, though it was grounded in the cold reality of what lay ahead. Minutes later, Jarzon's response came through. His grin had faded, replaced by a scowl. "You've sealed your fate," he spat. "We will make an example of your planet." The transmission cut off, and Rutherford turned back to his team. "They're going to strike hard and fast," he said. "We'll give them a target." A murmur of confusion rippled through the room. Garfield frowned. "A target? Sir, we're already vulnerable." "They don't know how vulnerable," Rutherford interrupted. "We'll lure them in, make them overcommit. Then we'll show them what it means to underestimate humanity." Garfield nodded, though doubt lingered in his eyes. He trusted Rutherford, but the plan was audacious, bordering on reckless. Still, there was no time to question it. The aliens were already moving. Hours later, as the first wave of alien ships descended, the skies over Earth lit up with streaks of fire. Cities scrambled to evacuate, while military forces prepared for the inevitable clash. Rutherford stood on a command deck overlooking the chaos, his expression as stoic as ever. Beside him, Garfield spoke quietly. "Do you think they'll take the bait?" Rutherford didn't answer immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the horizon, where alien vessels loomed like specters of doom. Finally, he said, "They will. Their pride won't let them do otherwise." As if on cue, a deafening explosion rocked the ground, and the night sky ignited in a blaze of destruction. The aliens had begun their assault. Rutherford watched unflinching as the carnage unfolded. He knew the cost would be high, but he also knew that humanity had one advantage the Zarkar could never understand. Survival wasn't just instinct. It was their legacy. "Let them come," Rutherford muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "They wanted to see what Earth is made of. Now they'll know." In the distance, the faint sound of resistance began to rise. Gunfire, explosions, and the defiant cries of those who refused to bow. The battle for Earth had begun, and with it, the first cracks in the Zarkar Dominion's arrogance. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burning debris, the remnants of Earth's first line of defense smoldering in the distance. General Paul Rutherford stood on the observation deck of the subterranean command center, his expression as unreadable as stone. Beyond the reinforced glass, screens displayed real-time footage of the Zarkar fleet wreaking havoc across the globe. The invaders moved with precision, their formations an eerie testament to their technological superiority. But Rutherford wasn't watching the destruction. He was watching for mistakes. "They're spreading too thin," Rutherford murmured, almost to himself. His voice was calm, as if he were observing the movements of a chessboard rather than the annihilation of cities. Lieutenant Alex Garfield stood nearby, the tension in his posture a stark contrast to Rutherford's composure. But simplicity didn't mean safety, and everyone knew it. The first sign of the patrol came in the form of an unnatural hum, low and resonant, that seemed to vibrate in their bones. Hunter raised a fist, signaling the team to halt. Through his night vision, he saw them. A group of 6 aliens moving in formation, their sleek armor shimmering faintly as if resisting the pull of reality. Their weapons, long and cruel-looking, glowed faintly at the edges, a reminder of how outgunned humanity was in this fight. But being outgunned didn't mean being outmatched. "Smith," Hunter whispered, "hit them." Smith grinned, his fingers hovering over a detonator. With pleasure, he pressed the button, and the forest erupted in chaos. The first EMP mine sent a pulse of energy rippling through the air, shorting out the aliens' cloaking devices and revealing them in full. For a split second, they hesitated, caught off guard by their sudden visibility. That was all the time Griffin needed. "One down," Griffin said calmly, squeezing the trigger of his rifle. 2, 3. "Man, they're lining up for me tonight." The aliens scrambled, trying to regroup, but Smith had anticipated their movements. A second explosion sent 2 of them flying, their sleek forms crashing into the underbrush. The 6th alien, the largest of the group, roared in fury and charged forward, its weapon glowing ominously. Boss, Smith said, his voice tinged with nervous humor. Big guy's coming this way, and I don't think he's here to talk. Hunter stepped forward, his calm demeanor unshaken. I've got him. Cover me. Before Smith could protest, Hunter moved like a shadow, darting between trees with practiced precision. The alien raised its weapon, aiming for him, but Hunter was faster. A flick of his wrist sent a throwing knife spinning through the air, embedding itself in the creature's arm. It howled in pain, its weapon clattering to the ground. Hunter closed the distance, drawing his combat knife in one smooth motion. The alien swung at him with surprising speed, but Hunter ducked, countering with a slash that opened a deep gash in its side. It staggered, greenish blood oozing from the wound, and Hunter pressed the advantage. A well-placed strike to its neck ended the fight, and the alien crumpled to the forest floor. Smith whistled over the comms. Remind me never to get on your bad side, Major. Hunter didn't respond, wiping the blade clean on the alien's armor. Griffin, status report. All clear, Griffin replied. No more movement on my end. Looks like we got the whole patrol. Good, Hunter said. Cross, regroup with us. Smith, start collecting samples. I want to know how their cloaking tech works. Cross's voice crackled over the comms. On my way. Just give me a minute. Pretty sure I stepped on something squishy, and I'd like to pretend it didn't happen. The team regrouped near the site of the ambush, their movements efficient and silent. Smith was already dismantling one of the alien devices, muttering to himself as he examined its intricate design. You know, he said, holding up a small, glowing module. If we could reverse engineer this, we'd be invisible too. Imagine the pranks we could pull. Or, Hunter said dryly, we could use it to win the war. Yeah, that too, Smith said, tucking the module into his pack. Griffin, perched on a rock nearby, watched the treeling with his rifle at the ready. Don't get too comfortable. That was just a patrol. They'll notice when these guys don't report back. They already have, Hunter said, holding up a small communicator he'd taken from the fallen alien leader. The device was flashing red, its symbols indecipherable but unmistakably urgent. They'll send reinforcements. We need to move. As if on cue, the hum returned, louder this time. Griffin scanned the horizon through his scope. Incoming. Looks like a search party, and they brought drones. Time to go, Hunter said. Cross, take point. Smith, keep those samples safe. Griffin, cover our retreat. The team moved swiftly, weaving through the forest like ghosts. Behind them, the hum grew louder, accompanied by flashes of light as the drones scanned the area. Cross led them to a narrow ravine, its steep walls offering some cover. This way, he said, his voice tight. It's a bit of a drop, but it beats getting fried by alien lasers. Griffin chuckled. I don't know, Cross. That sounds like a close contest. Feel free to test it out, Cross shot back. Hunter's voice cut through their banter. Enough. Stay focused. Smith, can you jam the drones? Working on it, Smith said, pulling out a small device from his pack. He flipped a switch, and the air seemed to shimmer for a moment. The hum of the drones faltered, then stopped altogether. Smith grinned. And that's why I'm the best. Don't get cocky, Hunter said. We're not out of this yet. The team reached the bottom of the ravine, where a hidden tunnel led back to their base. As they slipped inside, Hunter took one last look at the forest behind them. The aliens were adapting, but so were they. This was a war of attrition, and Hunter intended to make sure humanity came out on top. Inside the tunnel, the team relaxed slightly, their breaths heavy but their spirits high. Smith pulled out the glowing module again, holding it up to the dim light. You know, he said, grinning, this might just be the key to turning the tables. Hunter allowed himself a rare smile. Let's hope you're right, because next time they'll be coming for blood. The air was thick with tension as the Black Ops team navigated the jagged cliffs of the mountainous region. Every step was deliberate, their boots crunching softly against the gravel as they ascended. The higher they climbed, the more the temperature dropped, but none of them dared to comment on the cold. The mission demanded silence, precision, and above all, focus. Yet, predictably, Smith couldn't resist breaking it. Remind me again why we're hiking up a mountain instead of, I don't know, finding a cozy bunker somewhere, Smith muttered, adjusting the strap of his gear. I didn't sign up for this to play mountain goat. You signed up because you blew up half a training facility, and we needed someone crazy enough to try that on aliens, Griffin replied, his voice calm but laced with amusement. Besides, it's good cardio. Cardio doesn't save lives. Explosives do, Smith shot back, his grin audible in his voice. Hunter, leading the way, glanced over his shoulder. Smith, if you keep talking, you'll find out just how quiet it gets when I leave you behind. Understood, Major, Smith said quickly, though his smirk lingered. The mission was simple in theory, though nothing ever stayed that way. Alien forces had fortified a position near the peak, using the high ground to scout and launch drone strikes on nearby human settlements. The team's objective: neutralize the position, disable their communications, and retreat before reinforcements arrived. Simple, but as Smith liked to say, simple plans have the most ways to go wrong. As they reached the ridgeline, Cross stopped, raising a hand to signal movement ahead. Hunter crouched beside him, peering through the night vision scope on his rifle. Below, a cluster of alien troops patrolled the area, their shimmering armor reflecting faint light from a nearby energy beacon. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning the terrain with piercing blue beams. They've got a solid setup, Griffin said quietly, positioning himself beside Hunter. Drones, ground patrols, and that beacon's probably relaying everything back to their command ship. We take that out, and they're blind, which is why it's our first target, Hunter said. Griffin, I need you up high. Smith, plant charges along their perimeter in case we need a quick exit. Cross with me. We'll clear the patrols. What about me? Logan Hayes, the team's tracker and scout, chimed in over the comms from his position farther back. Keep an eye on the western slope, Hunter instructed. If they try to flank us, I want to know before it happens. Copy that, Hayes replied. I'll let you know if I spot anything that looks like it wants to eat us. Griffin moved swiftly to higher ground, setting up his sniper's perch with practiced ease. From there, he had a clear view of the beacon and the patrols. Smith disappeared into the shadows, his pack jingling faintly with the assortment of tools and explosives he carried. Cross followed Hunter down the slope, his nerves evident in the tight grip on his rifle. Relax, Cross, Hunter said without looking back. They bleed just like we do. Yeah, but they've got better toys, Cross replied, scanning the area. And a lot more friends. Hunter smirked faintly. That's why we don't fight fair. They reached the edge of the patrol zone, crouching behind a large boulder as two aliens passed within meters of them. Cross held his breath, his finger hovering over the trigger. Hunter raised a hand, signaling him to wait. Patience was something Cross was still learning, but he trusted the Major. When the aliens turned their backs, Hunter struck, silent and lethal. His blade flashed in the dim light, and the first alien crumpled to the ground before it could make a sound. Cross followed suit, taking down the second with a shaky but well-placed shot. Not bad, Hunter said, wiping his blade clean. Next time, aim faster. Noted, Cross muttered, trying to steady his breathing. Griffin's voice crackled over the comms. Beacons in sight. 2 guards posted, plus a drone overhead. I can take the guards, but the drone's your problem. Smith? Hunter asked. Already on it, Smith replied. Just give me 2 minutes. While Smith worked his magic, Hunter and Cross moved closer to the beacon. The alien guards stood motionless, their glowing visors scanning the horizon. It would have been unnerving if Hunter didn't know how predictable they were. Aliens relied on their tech too much, and that made them predictable. Humans, on the other hand, thrived in chaos. The drone's hum suddenly faltered, its lights flickering before it dropped from the sky like a stone. Smith's triumphant voice followed. "Drone down. You're clear. Griffin, take the guards," Hunter ordered. 2 quiet shots echoed in rapid succession, and the guards dropped without a sound. Hunter and Cross moved in, planting charges around the beacon. Smith joined them moments later, a mischievous grin on his face. "You know, I almost feel bad for these guys." "Almost. Save it for after we're out of here," Hunter said, checking the timer on the charges. 60 seconds. "Let's move." The team regrouped on the ridgeline, watching as the beacon erupted in a blinding explosion. The alien patrols below scrambled in confusion, their comms likely filled with static thanks to the EMP embedded in the charges. Griffin picked off a few stragglers, his calm precision thinning their numbers. But the victory was short-lived. Hayes's voice cut through the comms, sharp and urgent. "We've got a problem. Reinforcements incoming, and they're not messing around. Heavy armor, air support, the works." Hunter swore under his breath. "Fall back to the extraction point. Smith, trigger the perimeter charges. Make it loud." "With pleasure," Smith said, detonating the explosives he'd planted earlier. The forest lit up with fire and shrapnel, buying the team precious seconds to escape. As they sprinted down the mountain, the sound of alien roars and explosions echoed behind them. Cross stumbled, nearly falling before Griffin caught him. "Keep moving, rookie." No time for sightseeing. The team reached the extraction point, a hidden cave system that led to an underground river. As they slipped into the shadows, Hunter took one last look at the mountain. The aliens had been thrown off balance, but this was far from over. They were adapting, and the next encounter would be even more dangerous. Inside the cave, the team paused to catch their breath. Smith pulled out a ration bar, grinning as he unwrapped it. "Well, that was fun. Same time tomorrow." "Assuming we survive tomorrow," Griffin said, shaking his head. Hunter leaned against the cave wall, his expression unreadable. "We'll survive, but we're not just playing defense anymore. Next time, we take the fight to them." His words hung in the air, heavy with promise. The team exchanged glances, their exhaustion giving way to determination. They'd struck a blow tonight, but the war was far from over, and they intended to make every shadow their ally. The ruins of the abandoned city, stretched out like a labyrinth of crumbled concrete and twisted metal, bathed in an eerie half-light from the alien beacons overhead. Major Gabriel Hunter crouched behind a collapsed wall, his team spread out in the shadows around him. Every member was silent, their breaths controlled, their focus absolute. The air crackled with tension, an invisible storm brewing just beyond the edge of their vision. Hunter's voice came through the comms, low and commanding. "This is it. They've pushed too far into our territory, and tonight, we remind them why humans own the night." "Smith, is everything in place?" 100 yards away, Corporal Roger Smith grinned as he connected the final wire on a makeshift explosive rig. "Oh, it's more than in place, Major. When this goes off, they're going to think the gates of hell just opened under their feet." "Good," Hunter replied. Griffin report. From his sniper perch on the skeletal remains of a high-rise, Sergeant Daniel Griffin had a perfect view of the enemy forces assembling in the city square. His voice was calm, almost detached, as he described the scene. "They've got at least 3 squads moving in formation, supported by drones. Looks like heavy armor coming up the rear. This is their big push." Hunter processed the information, his mind piecing together the strategy. "Cross, Hayes, you're on distraction. Keep them focused on the east sector. Smith, hold your position until I give the signal. Griffin, pick off their officers when you have a clear shot. We hit hard, we hit fast, and we vanish before they know what hit them." Private Mike Cross shifted nervously behind a pile of rubble, his rifle clutched tightly in his hands. Why do I always get the distraction jobs? Is it my charming personality? You volunteered the moment you complained, Specialist Logan Hayes said with a quiet chuckle, checking the settings on his camouflaged armor. Don't worry, kid. I'll make sure you don't embarrass yourself. Appreciate the vote of confidence, Cross said. The aliens moved with cold efficiency, their armor gleaming under the beacons, their weapons glowing faintly with lethal energy. They advanced in perfect synchronization, their confidence evident in every step. Hunter watched them through his scope, his expression unreadable. They didn't know what was waiting for them, and he intended to keep it that way. On my mark, Hunter said, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. 3, 2, 1 now. Cross and Hayes sprang into action, firing controlled bursts at the advancing squads from their position in the east. The aliens immediately shifted focus, their lines tightening as they turned toward the unexpected attack. Griffin's rifle spoke next, a single, precise shot dropping the alien officer at the center of their formation. The effect was instantaneous. Confusion rippled through their ranks, the cohesion of their movements faltering. Smith, light it up, Hunter ordered. A series of explosions erupted in the city square, throwing debris and alien soldiers into the air. Smith's laughter crackled over the comms. Told you they wouldn't see it coming. That's 2 squads down. Who's keeping count? Focus, Smith, Hunter said sharply, but there was a flicker of approval in his tone. Griffin, keep the pressure on. Cross, Hayes, fall back to the secondary position. The aliens regrouped quickly, their reinforcements pouring in from the west. The ground trembled as a massive armored walker stepped into view, its turret swiveling toward the team's position. Hunter's eyes narrowed. Griffin, take out that walker's gunner. Smith, do you have anything that can punch through its armor? Do I? Smith sounded almost offended. Give me 30 seconds. Make it 20, Hunter replied. As the walker's turret locked onto Cross and Hayes, Griffin fired. The shot rang out, and the alien gunner slumped forward lifeless. The walker hesitated. Its advance momentarily stalled. Smith, crouched behind a shattered bus, rigged together a device that looked half-finished at best. This is either going to be genius or suicidal, he muttered, activating the charge and tossing it under the walker's legs. The explosion was deafening, the walker collapsing in a cacophony of twisted metal and alien screams. Smith whooped triumphantly. Genius. Obviously. Good work, Hunter said, moving from cover to cover as he advanced on the remaining forces. The aliens, now fully aware of the ambush, spread out, their formations tight but cautious. They were learning, adapting, but so was the team. Hunter's strategy was relentless. Each move calculated to exploit the aliens' weaknesses. He used their reliance on technology against them, planting holographic decoys and setting off EMP charges to disorient their drones. Every step the aliens took forward was met with traps, sniper fire, and sudden, devastating counterattacks. But the battle was far from over. A hulking alien commander stepped into view, its armor thicker, its weaponry more advanced than anything they had encountered before. It barked orders in a guttural language, rallying the remaining troops. Hunter's eyes locked onto the figure, his expression hardening. That's our target. Take him out, and the rest will scatter. Griffin adjusted his scope, tracking the commander's movements. He's smart, sticking close to cover. I'll need a clear shot. Then we'll give you one, Hunter said. Smith, cross with me. Hayes, flank him from the south. The team moved with precision, drawing the commander's attention, while Hayes slipped through the rubble undetected. The alien roared in frustration, its shots tearing through concrete and steel as it tried to pin them down. Hunter saw his opening and took it, stepping into the open to draw the commander's fire. The alien snarled, raising its weapon, but before it could pull the trigger, Hayes struck from behind, a well-placed explosive sticking to the commander's back. Griffin now, Hunter shouted. The sniper's shot was perfect, piercing the weakened armor and dropping the commander in a single decisive blow. The remaining aliens faltered, their formation collapsing as panic set in. Hunter seized the moment, leading his team in a final, ruthless assault that left no enemy standing. As the dust settled, the team regrouped near the wreckage of the walker. Smith leaned against a wall, grinning despite the grime and sweat covering his face. "Well, that was fun. Let's never do it again." "Not bad for a bunch of humans," Griffin said, his tone dry but carrying a note of pride. Cross sat down heavily, his rifle resting across his knees. "I'm too young for this level of stress." "You're still alive," Hunter said, his voice calm but firm. "That's what matters." The Major scanned the battlefield, his mind already turning to the next challenge. The aliens had underestimated them, but they wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Humanity's advantage lay in its unpredictability, its refusal to follow the rules, and Hunter intended to use that to its fullest. As the team disappeared into the shadows once more, Hunter allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. They had won tonight, but the war was far from over. The aliens had made one critical error. They had brought the fight to Earth, where humanity knew every inch of the terrain, every trick and trap. And in the darkness, humanity thrived.